The wedding guests applauded with bright smiles as an older woman proudly announced that her son had finally found a real family. The words echoed across the beautifully decorated garden under the warm afternoon sun, but no one noticed the woman standing quietly at the edge of the celebration, clutching the tiny hand of a frightened little girl. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Just as she turned to leave forever, a single father walked through the crowd, stopped beside her without saying a word, and changed the course of every life standing there. What happened next reminded everyone that true family is never built by blood alone, it is built by love, sacrifice, and the courage to stand beside someone when the whole world walks away. Before we continue, if you believe kindness is stronger than pride and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone you love, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and subscribe to Echo Tales Story for more emotional stories that touch the heart. The woman's name was Marissa Hale. Only 3 years earlier she had believed she was living the life she had always dreamed of. She had married the man she loved after years of friendship, imagining a future filled with laughter, children, and peaceful evenings together. Instead, her marriage slowly became a place where she constantly felt unwanted. Her husband became colder every passing month, while his mother never accepted her as part of the family. Every achievement Marissa celebrated was dismissed, every mistake she made was remembered, and every effort she gave seemed invisible. Still, she stayed because she believed love required patience. She convinced herself that tomorrow would be kinder than today. Everything changed on a bright spring morning when her husband packed his belongings and admitted he had fallen in love with someone else. He walked away from the marriage with shocking ease, leaving Marissa alone to raise their 5-year-old daughter, Ivy. The divorce papers arrived only weeks later, and with them came silence from the family she had once called her own. The people who had promised to stand beside her disappeared one by one. The hardest part was watching little Ivy ask innocent questions about why her father never came home anymore. Marissa answered every question with gentle smiles while crying herself to sleep each night after her daughter closed her eyes. Life became a daily struggle. She worked long hours at a neighborhood bookstore during the daytime and cleaned offices after sunset just to pay rent and keep food on the table. Every dollar mattered. She skipped meals whenever money became tight so Ivy could enjoy simple treats that reminded her childhood still existed. Their tiny apartment was old and modest, but it was always filled with warmth, bedtime stories, and quiet hope. Marissa refused to let bitterness become part of the home she was building. Across town lived a man named Rowan Mercer. He was also raising a child alone after losing his wife during a sudden illness 2 years earlier. His 8-year-old son, Elias, had stopped smiling for months after his mother's passing. Rowan worked as a landscape designer, spending his days creating beautiful parks and gardens while secretly wondering why life had become so empty. He never imagined that one ordinary afternoon at the bookstore would slowly begin changing everything. Marissa noticed Rowan because he always arrived with a respectful smile and patiently waited while Elias searched through shelves filled with adventure books. Rowan noticed Marissa because she treated every customer with kindness, even after exhausting workdays. Neither of them searched for love. They simply recognized a familiar sadness in each other's eyes. Over several months their conversations became longer. They exchanged recommendations for children's books, spoke about parenting, and laughed over the little things their children said. The friendship felt natural, gentle, and safe. Soon Ivy and Elias became close friends. They spent sunny weekends feeding ducks at the city lake, flying colorful kites in the park, and sharing homemade sandwiches beneath large green trees. For the first time since her divorce, Marissa laughed without forcing herself. Rowan discovered that healing did not always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it arrived quietly through ordinary afternoons shared with people who understood pain. Not everyone celebrated Marissa's growing happiness. News eventually reached her former mother-in-law, Lorraine Ashcroft. Lorraine had always believed Marissa was never good enough for her son. After her son announced his engagement to another woman, Lorraine proudly began planning an extravagant wedding. She invited nearly everyone from the past except Marissa and Ivy. Yet fate had different plans waiting beneath the clear blue afternoon sky. 1 week before the ceremony, Ivy learned from another child that her father was getting married. The innocent little girl asked whether she could at least see her father from far away because she still loved him. Marissa's heart shattered, but she could not deny her daughter such a simple wish. She decided they would quietly attend the outdoor ceremony from a distance, remaining unnoticed before leaving once it ended. The wedding day arrived bright and beautiful. Sunlight danced across the flowers decorating the elegant garden. Music floated through the warm afternoon air while guests admired expensive decorations and celebrated what appeared to be the perfect beginning for a new family. Marissa stood outside the seating area wearing a simple blue dress she had owned for years. Ivy held her mother's hand tightly, smiling with innocent hope that maybe her father would wave once. Instead, they witnessed something neither of them expected. As the ceremony ended, Lorraine proudly raised her glass and smiled at the guests. She declared that her son had finally found a real family and that happiness had finally entered his life. Laughter and applause followed, but every word struck Marissa like another stone against her heart. Ivy lowered her head in confusion, unable to understand why she was being erased from the story of her own father. Marissa gently squeezed her daughter's hand and turned to leave before anyone noticed the tears gathering in her eyes. At that exact moment, another voice quietly interrupted the celebration, not with loud words, but with a silent act that no one would ever forget. Rowan Mercer had arrived after learning where Marissa had gone. The moment he saw her standing alone with Ivy, he understood everything without needing an explanation. He walked calmly through the crowd, ignored every curious stare, and stood beside Marissa. Without embarrassment or hesitation, he gently placed one comforting hand on Ivy's shoulder and another around Marissa, making it clear that neither of them would face humiliation alone anymore. The garden suddenly became silent. Guests who had been smiling only seconds earlier watched the single father choose compassion over comfort. Rowan did not come to create conflict or seek revenge. He came because he believed no child should ever feel abandoned and no good mother should stand alone while others celebrated her pain. End of Part 1.